Hello everybody and welcome to Rest and Reason. I'm RP the Red Panda and today we're going to be looking at Daimyo Senso. Now, Daimyo Senso is actually my second fixer-upper on this channel, but before I get started on this game, I want to make a quick clarification about my fixer-upper category. You see, some people thought that fixer-upper was a really negative thing for me to say about a game. But actually, it means it's a game I really love. A game I think has really great foundations, has really great things that I love about it. But it needs some tweaks to be a game I can truly recommend. And that's exactly how this game is. The game's mechanics really feel like you are one of those many feudal lords fighting for control, negotiating with each other, to get a leg ahead, to beat up those other people so that eventually you can take over Kyoto and become the shogun. The main mechanic of this game is area control, but specifically diplomacy area control. Diplomacy area control, unlike most area control games, which focus on you controlling the area by fighting over it directly, this game has a lot of elements where you're going to have to talk to the people next to you to coordinate your actions to get what you want. If you don't talk to your neighbors, you will lose to somebody who does talk to their neighbors. And that's why I would call this a diplomacy area control game. But it does need some fixing. And let me go ahead and explain what needs to be fixed and how I fix it. So first off, I would say the setup needs to be fixed. Now, the original game has you set things up like this. Everybody gets one of these with 3 soldiers, one of these with 2 soldiers, and one of these with 1 soldier. Now, that would be great, except for factions like this one right here. Notice how this faction is sandwiched between here and here. So he's stuck. And in the original game, he has no bonus for being stuck. So either this should go to the best player because you think these two aren't going to do very good, or this needs to be fixed a little bit. So I fixed it by doing one simple thing. I put 1 extra soldier on a city. That 1 extra guy makes all the difference. I played this game with that 1 extra guy for this guy, and instead of him being one of the worst factions in the game, he became an actually good faction. It also helped with this guy. Originally, this guy was just too powerful because this guy was so weak. And because this guy got stronger, this guy got weaker by comparison. Now, another faction that needed some help was this one right here. Notice, he's right in the middle of 3 different people. So I gave this guy just a couple extra soldiers. 1 extra here and 1 extra there. 2 extra soldiers. That's it. This will help this guy actually be able to maneuver. Now, this guy can say, I'm really strong. Maybe you should team up with me because I'm strong enough that it would be hard to beat me. The last group who was really, really strong was this guy. Notice how he has all this territory up here to go to, and he's the only one, basically, who can go up here. And he started just like everybody else. So I thought I should take away his 1 extra soldier that he could have put in either one of these spots. Or that one. He could have put it in any of those 3. I took that away so that now he starts with a slight disadvantage in number of soldiers and places, but he has an advantage in where he's positioned, because the closest guy is down here, and this guy's got those 2 guys to worry about already. So all of these setup changes make the game more balanced. And they're very simple, and they're something you'd only have to deal with at the setup. The other big thing that needed to be changed was the general cards. Now, the general cards are one of those things that I'm going to readily admit that some people are gonna love playing with these general cards because they're crazy and zany and they have huge, massive powers. This one lets you destroy an extra 4 or 5 people on your turn. To put that in perspective, you usually destroy 2 people on your turn. But the problem is, yes, this guy has a really powerful card, but this guy does not have very powerful cards. His cards let him attack from all his cities or fortresses, which sounds like a lot until you realize right now he controls 2 cities, so he'd be able to attack from 2 places. Yay! It's not very good unless he gets really, really big. And by then, he might not even need that card. So these cards weren't super well balanced, but if you really want a zany, imbalanced game where people are playing superpowers, these cards are fun and thematic because they're based off of historical generals. But if you want a game that really goes with what I think this game is all about, which is diplomacy, area control, take these cards out. It will make the game simpler, it will make the game more strategic, and it will make the game more balanced. Next up, I would also recommend that you select your actions on your turn. So originally in the game, your actions were set. You would, if you're this group, deploy first, put out guys, attack second, move third, and then attack again. In my version, you're not going to do that. You are going to take these 4 cards that come with the game, and you're going to put them on top of your faction card. You're going to select one of those actions your first turn. Let's say you just do the deploy and get some extra units. You put it behind your faction card, and next turn, you only have those 3 cards to choose from. Attack, attack, and move. Let's say you choose move. Now all you can do is attack. And then finally, when you're done with all of your actions for that year, all 4 seasons, you put them back on top for next year, and you start all over. The reason why this makes the game better is because it goes from being a game where sometimes you just kind of got screwed. Your stuff wasn't really in the right spot. Your deploy was at the end of your turn. If you're this yellow guy, notice how his deploy is at the end of the turn. That means that if he takes anything, it won't matter until the very end of this turn. And everybody else around him is getting soldiers and attacking him, and he has to wait till the end to even get anything from his deployment. In my version, he could say, ooh, I really need more soldiers. I'm right here in the middle of all these guys. I'm going to deploy the first turn, so I have even more soldiers so people go around me instead of attacking me. That's not possible in the original game. It's simple, it's strategic, and ultimately, it's thematic. Because thematically, you can choose to do what you want to do when you want to do it in warfare. But you can't take soldiers twice a year. Either your people are going to rebel, or there won't be enough people to even get soldiers from. You need to wait till next year. Also, you're only going to have so many resources to do so many things. You're only going to have enough weapons and arrows and blacksmiths to make enough stuff to go and attack maybe 2 times each year. Or you're only going to have enough provisions to move 1 time a year. So I do like thematically that you have that, but it doesn't make sense that you would have to deploy and get your soldiers together in winter. It doesn't make sense that you would have to move in summer. You could choose to do those things in different places. And so that's what my change does. The next thing that I change is that whole movement concept I was just talking about. In the original game, movement was 1 guy at a time. In my changes to the game, you take 1 stack from 1 place, and you can either take all of it or some of it and move it to another place. I also recommend that you do this with attack. You see, in the original game, you attack once per turn. Once per turn. So you'd get 2 attacks a year. In my modification, you are going to get to attack as many times as you get to move. This is really good for balancing because it makes this building more valuable. In the original game, this building only helped you move around a little bit. So I found that most people didn't even bother trying to take this building. But when I played with my changes, I found that everybody wanted these buildings so they could go attack more. They'd go get that building so they'd have more attack next turn. This would make the game more balanced and also, again, be more thematic. If you have more fortresses, you can have more blacksmiths working on arrows and armor so that you can do more invasions in the year. If you have less, you can't do as many. My last change to this game has to do with regional bonuses. So let's go ahead and look at why I think the regional bonuses needed to be changed. Right here we see this gives you an extra troop. It makes all your attacks rounded up, which is really good. Just take my word for it. And it gives you an extra point every single year. Whereas this one right here only lets you move 1 troop. Yes, thematically, some of these territories in Japan were probably more valuable than others. But the problem is, for balance, it made the game so that some people would just get really good bonuses for taking over stuff, and the other people would get almost nothing for taking over stuff. With my changes, here's how it would work. These guys have the majority of here, right? They've got 2, nobody else has anything else in it. They can then choose to put this on whatever bonus they want on the board. So if they want their faction to be really good at attacking, they're going to put it right here, next to the attack roundup. If they want their group to have more soldiers, they're going to put it right here, next to more soldiers. They could choose whatever bonus they wanted, and they could choose it more than once. Except for, of course, this one, you can't round up more than once. You just round up the one time. But for all the other bonuses, they could just be like, yeah, I really want to be really good at moving. That's what I want to do. This makes it so that it's asymmetric, and it makes it so that you're only going to get one of them, not multiple. And you're going to be able to get ones that you want to be focusing on, which makes it so it's more customizable. So every game's going to feel a little different, because maybe this time you won't choose the attack roundup. You might choose the extra victory point every turn. And you can choose that based off of what's happening in the game, so it's more reactive. My last recommendation isn't actually a fix. It's a recommendation on which one of the things in the instruction manual I would have you play. There's a version of this game where you can't take people's capitals. So a capital is like this one right here. So you couldn't take this castle with 3 points from this guy at all. I wouldn't recommend doing that. I would recommend playing the version of the game where this guy could come down here and take this over. And the reason I would recommend that is A, if you're losing in this game and you only have this left, you're going to want to die. Legitimately, every time I've played this game, whenever somebody's gotten down to their last thing, it's just no fun for them. They're just sitting there wishing somebody could kill them, but they can't. And it helps those who are winning so that they're not stuck having this guy right here just building a soldier a turn, and nobody can go through here. It's right in the middle. People need to move through here, and they can't. They wouldn't be able to move here. They'd have to go around him. It just makes the game feel really weird and constricted, and it's not thematic. Thematically, you can destroy people. It is part of combat games. So I highly recommend playing the version in here that allows you to get rid of other players. In that version, you get to take one of their action cards, and I would still have that in my version. You just take their action card and add it to your 4, and now every time you have 5 to select from, and at the end of the year, you still can do an extra action. It makes it so it still runs just like the original game. The only main difference is you still get to choose your own actions. So, those are my fixes to Daimyo Senso, and I would give this game originally only a 2.5 out of 5. That's my original score for it. But with my fixes, I would give this game a 3.8 out of 5, which is a general recommendation, a silver recliner. And the silver recliner is well deserved. This is a game that I would say if anybody wants to have on their shelf a diplomatic area control game, this is the one to get. Because this is the one you're going to be able to play more than most. You're not going to get Diplomacy off the shelf very often. You're not going to get Game of Thrones, the board game, off the shelf very often. You need like 8 players who really want to play for 4 to 5 to 6 hours or more for either of those games. For this game, you only need maybe even 4 to make this game pretty interesting, I would say. And on top of that, it doesn't take very long. It takes like 2 or 3 hours at worst. This is the game I would recommend if you want diplomacy area control games. I would love to hear your comments below. I want to have good conversations with you guys down in the comments so that we can really think about board games and really enjoy board games with our brains as well as our hearts. And as always, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification button, and join the shogunate of RP today. And thank you so much for joining us on Rest and Reason.